From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
Welcome to another edition of Ticats This Week. I'm RJ Broadhead along with Luke Tasker, and it is a Tiger Cats win that they're coming off of, Luke. It took a while. Week 6 of the CFL, 5th game for the Tiger Cats, and man, it wasn't the easy way again. A lot of drama, but a late victory. They needed Red Blacks to miss the field goal, but a win's a win. How do you think that changes things going forward for the Tiger Cats?
Well, you hope that it does. And one of those statistically strange games where you had less sacks than the opposition, more turnovers than the opposition. Not the prettiest game ever, but only one thing matters. In the locker room, you can, after a game like what happened in Saturday night, after a first win like that, you can take a breath and say, boy, it feels good. I remember what it's like now to win a game, and then those corrections are easier to make going forward. So, there's no shortage of them. There's a lot that's going to have to fix, and BC is playing good football. They're going to have to solidify some of those things that are still not where they want to be.
Yeah, Tiger Cats at 1-4, BC at 3-1 in that powerhouse West division, and they're a high-flying team. They can put up some offense, pretty good defensively. Exciting team to watch. Their only loss has come against Winnipeg, and pretty much everybody loses to Winnipeg, so that's one that you probably look at the schedule and think if you win it, it's a bit of a bonus. How tough is it? We've joked around about us broadcasters being up for a game that starts at 10 o'clock, but realistically, we don't matter. The players are the ones that matter. Is it tough for them to play a game that starts at 10 o'clock Eastern time?
It is. That is a long, long day out there. And I remember going out there and having an 8 p.m. start in BC. And I believe this is going to be 7 p.m. BC time. Yeah. It's still a long time for where your clock is on that day. And it's hard not to wake up at 5 a.m., in BC time. Some great breakfast spots in BC, though, so you have plenty of time to hit all your favorite locations. But yeah, it is hard. You gotta get right. It sounds like they were practicing later, and trying to do some things that way to make it. But the second part of that, adversity in sort of the pregame prep week kind of stuff is that it's just so short a week, a Saturday to a Thursday, and that adds a little bit of a challenge as well. The Ticats obviously, you're not gonna practice, and they haven't been practicing at full hard pace, and you just get less a week to focus in, and so there's all of that to go along with the storyline. I remember one year in BC where, like I said, we had an 8 p.m. start sometimes out there, and sitting around in your hotel thinking, it's got to be time to go to the stadium by now. And you got 3.5 hours left before you even leave for the stadium. And RJ, how I've mentioned to you many times, I was not a big warm-up guy. I didn't want to just sit around in my pads for 2 hours before a game, and that's sometimes what it feels like. So yes. By the time it gets to the beginning of that game out there, man, you got to be able to renew your energy at that right before that kickoff.
If I were the Lions, I'd start every game against an East Division opponent at home at 8 o'clock local.
Right. Yeah, it's really an advantage, honestly.
You touched on it just briefly there, Luke, but I think it is significant that the Ticats players have been going and practicing late at night just to get their bodies accustomed. I think it's a great idea. What do you think?
Yeah, and I don't really remember us ever doing that as a player. I can't think back to that happening, but I think it's smart. I mean, if you're starting your on-field work, if you come in for the 9 o'clock meetings and everything, and you're getting on the field 11 a.m. East Coast, well, it's 8 a.m. on the Pacific, and you're going to be playing at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. So it's just it's a huge difference, and might as well kind of train a little bit, even though it's a 5-day week. But you might as well get a little bit into rhythm the days before. I think it's probably a smart idea.
A big signing, I guess, this week for the Tiger Cats was bringing in Kahari Jones. I only see positives out of it. Kahari was a great player, a real offensive mind. I thought he did a great job with Montreal and probably was wrongfully let go by the Alouettes. But the Tiger Cats do have 3 games against the Alouettes coming up. How do you know Kahari? And if you do, tell us a little story. If not, what do you think of the hiring?
I never had a chance to interact with him personally, actually. He was a name that, of course, I knew early getting up into the CFL. I started to kind of become aware of him, and he was in Hamilton as a coach. I mean, prior to my years as a player. But he's kind of become one of the household names, a name that you kind of hear going around the league, and he's respected by a lot of guys, great offensive mind, and has had success in a few different locations. And it's very interesting that he's coming to Hamilton. Coach O has kind of made it clear this isn't really to not read into this about Tommy Condell and his future here. And so if that's true, and if that's the case, then you get 2 CFL minds to sort of work together. And to be honest, I've seen situations like that not go very well or not be very productive, let's say. But I don't know. I mean, it seems you can see if you look back and read the news reports from when the days earlier this week. It sounds like Kahari Jones, he's kind of coming in saying, "Hey, if you like it, use it, and if you don't, I just want to be a net positive one way or another." It's not like he's not looking and he's not being empowered to come in and install his entire offense. He just needs to add a little bit here and there, and if that can be fruitful, it'd be really impressive to watch. It's kind of like the Dane Evans and Jeremiah Mazzoli of 2021, and now it's the double coordinator on the offensive side.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I can only see positives out of it, so I think it's a great hire, and probably will pay dividends down the road. We'll see in those Montreal games if the Ticats have a little inside info. Speaking of the offense, we saw a lot of creativity against Ottawa. What did you think from what you saw from the Tiger Cats offense?
Well, what stands out is obviously the plays where Matt Schultz came into the game, specifically where Dane Evans and Matt Schultz stayed on the field together. There was that really unique play where Dane was sort of lined up in a pistol formation, behind a shotgun quarterback, and they pitched the ball and then threw it, and it sailed a little bit outside, but it was interesting and close to being a touchdown, actually, what would have been that reception. And it seems to me, and this is Coach O and I kind of discussed this earlier this week, it seems to be like Dane does well in these unique situations. Like, he thrived going back and forth with Jeremiah. He thrived coming in late in 2019 for Jeremiah. And I don't know, it was certainly exciting. And Matt Schultz came in and had a couple receptions, and obviously a late interception, but it was in a point in the game where it was one of those circumstances for a quarterback where you're going to force it no matter what. And we always talk about, quarterbacks can't force the ball. Well, when it's 3rd down and goal, and there's a minute and a half left in the game, you need to force that. You need to either throw a touchdown and risk throwing that interception, because that's all he had. And turns out Ticats did get another chance down there in the score zone later in the game. But Matt Schultz played decent, and then in combination, Dane had moments where it looked really interesting and good as well. So a lot of interesting stuff. You mentioned it in the broadcast. They were coming out of the bye week and sort of had some maybe creative inspiration in the downtime there, but fun to watch. We'll see if we get more of that in BC.
I was at practice yesterday, and there were a few of the Matt Schultz, Dane Evans plays on the field at the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like that creativity again against BC. The running game, Don Jackson was back in, Luke. It wasn't a dominant performance by Don Jackson. The running game seems to be getting better, not by leaps and bounds, but small increments. Do you see an improvement, or do you think it has to show a much larger improvement?
Well, improvement, yeah, and just still not a hugely positive part of the offensive performance. Matt Schultz and Dane also have had a couple positive runs, but they're going to have to keep pounding away at it. You can't give it up entirely. You have to keep some semblance of the run game involved. And Tommy Condell, that's really been the most creative part of his offense, is trying to establish the run game, but doing it in creative ways with receivers and quarterbacks. And so I just expect to see more of that, honestly. I mean, these receivers are going to be part of that. Braylon Addison had a couple productive times, and I think Tim White's another guy who you can expect to see that from. But that sort of seems to be the answer for the time being.
A couple of trends just won't go away. The second halves, the Tiger Cats did win the fourth quarter, outscoring Ottawa 7-6, so not dominant. But now you look at the third quarters. They haven't won a third quarter all season long. So coming out of the half, and they've scored just 6 points in the third quarter all season long. 6 points in 5 games. Is there any explanation for these second half woes as you continue to search for answers, as we know the Tiger Cats players and coaches are?
Yep. And now the total net fourth quarter scoring is negative 43 in the fourth quarter after having won it by a point. So it is ugly second halves. And we touched on this in the broadcast as well. Everybody know you can't listen to a Ticats Audio Network and not hear the word turnover a couple times. And so everyone's on to that problem. But the turnovers are second half heavy. Incredibly so, and the Ticats had 2 first half turnovers in the game just passed, but costly fourth quarter turnovers, 2 of them, and so that is the first and obvious answer to the second half woes: is you got to continue the ball security throughout the night. But if you looked back game by game, I don't know if you can blanket one problem on all the 5 second halves that they've played. I don't know if you can do that apart from the turnover story. And in this last game, it was very interesting. Ottawa got the ball to start the second half, and they had an enormous return down to, I think it was the 50-yard line of Hamilton, and then had an additional 15-yard penalty. And so they started their offensive attack of the second half deep into Hamilton's end. If you looked back at all the games, I think you could find a few plays here and there that you'd pinpoint and say just bad timing to allow that explosive play, bad time to allow that sack to stop your drive. You've got to march down, stay aggressive, and eliminate those explosive plays against you at the start of that third quarter.
At practice, Luke, I noticed Dane Evans had a glove on his non-throwing hand, and I asked around, and I've been assured that it was just something he was trying. It's not because of the fumbles or anything. So, did you ever play with a quarterback that wore gloves? We've seen it occasionally, even on the throwing hand of some quarterbacks. But is it unusual if a quarterback has a glove on his non-throwing hand?
It's a little unusual, and just like receivers, I mean, you can kind of get in your own head, and if something's working for you, up in your head, yes, then placebo is a real thing. You might as well let it work for you in the positive, right? So I would think that he is probably trying to do something to make him think differently, even if that glove is more a reminder. If he carries the ball in his right hand, that glove can just be more of a reminder, and to iron cross, and to when you're in contact, and it may be something like that. I think a lot of times the problem can come when it's on your non-throwing hand on a handoff. They're so tacky, the gloves, that sometimes you can get it locked into a jersey or stuck on the ball a little bit too long, and could also be something he's trying for practice. It'll be interesting to see if he comes out in BC like that. But you do whatever you can, and when you've got the turnover blues, you just whatever it takes, you do it. You duct tape the ball while you're walking around to your hand while you walk around the facilities if you have to. I mean, honestly, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it has been bad luck, and you hope that those breaks will turn and go in your favor at some point. We saw Anthony Johnson make his CFL debut. He's injured, won't play, so Emmanuel Butler comes in. He's He's a large receiver, tall. He'll be a big target. We'll see what he can do. He looked pretty good in the preseason, and you're number 17. He wears number 17. Is it going to be weird for you to see your number out there?
We briefly saw it last year, and a little bit, yeah. I mean, it was actually assigned to me when I came to Hamilton. I didn't choose 17.
Okay.
And I instantly it instantly felt like mine. So happy to, I don't own it though. So I'm happy to pass it along, and it'll be good to see, especially if he has a great game. Maybe scores a touchdown, just like Anthony Johnson did in his debut.
Yeah. So what was your number if you could have picked?
You know, it's crazy. I was 19 in high school by choice, 18 in college, not by choice, and 17 with the Ticats, also not by choice. So I don't know. I guess maybe I would have chose it, but I didn't get the chance to, just for that reason.
Well, you're right in the teens there all the time.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, Dad was 89.
Yeah.
But I played quarterback in high school, so I wasn't going to wear 89. But I kept the 9, went for 19, and I played free safety. So I wanted like one of those numbers that kind of works in a lot of different ways, and there you go.
So you could be your dream. You mentioned last week on Ticats This Week that the quarterback dream. It really could have happened. You have experience.
I was ready for it. Oh yeah, well, my high school experience, yes, but I was ready to be the emergency quarterback. Really was. Emergency punter as well. Don't forget that one, and place kicker.
We've got a great feature where we find out where some of our listeners on the Ticats Audio Network are listening from, and we've had a couple say they want to see you back in uniform. Is it, just to follow up on some viewer or some listener emails. What's your response to that?
Don't trust Ticat fans. They're a little crazy, man. They get a little loopy at game time on the Ticats game days. But no, I'm a full-time broadcaster now, RJ. You know that.
Hey, I like it. I'll take you beside me in the broadcast booth any day. We haven't talked about the defense, and maybe that's a good thing because it seems to be going pretty well. What's your evaluation of the Ticats defense this season?
Well, they had some good rush on Saturday, and the story of the first half to me looked like Ottawa really did not have much going, except for all of a sudden you'd think, okay, their drive's going to stop, and they'd get a 20-yard play, and then 2 and out, not much productivity, and then another explosive play down the field. To me, that's actually somewhat promising. I mean, I think the Ticats had a good defensive game, and it's not like they're every drive getting kicked back and pushed back and first down after first down after first down. They actually, in my opinion, had a pretty solid performance. And so you've got a really, really explosive offense in BC. And you've got to be able to eliminate that slow bleed of just every drive taking up 5 minutes on the clock, and then all of a sudden you're just out there all night as a defensive player. Love to see that rush continue. Julian Hauser we saw get in the backfield. We mentioned Ted Laurent's name a couple times. Obviously, one of the longest tenured Ticats, and he's up there in his years and in the length of his career. But he was on the field at a few big plays during the game on Saturday. And then, of course, what I think of Dylan Wynn, Micah Johnson. They've got a great group up there, and to see that front four continue to get better and better and get more and more pressure, it's going to be important for the Ticats to continue to tack some wins in the win column.
Well, it will be a tough game in BC. 10 o'clock start. You're going to have a nap before the game, Luke, but I know you'll be ready.
Oh, I am. I'll be across the border and taking a quick snooze before this late start.
Well, if you're going to listen to the game, go to bed, 10 o'clock Eastern time start, turn the Ticats Audio Network on. We'll bring the energy. We'll make sure you don't fall asleep, and we'll have it for you. We'll be all pumped and fired up. Looking forward to seeing you at the game, nice and late, Luke. But it's a big one for the Ticats.
Awesome. Can't wait for it. And yes, it is a very big one. To go out west on a short week and to get a win would be a great accomplishment for this team and a great way to solidify this turn towards winning that they're starting to make here.
Well, we appreciate you listening to Ticats This Week. The pregame show on Thursday starts at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and Luke and I will have the call for kickoff at 10 o'clock. Hope you can tune in to the Ticats Audio Network.
It's been another busy week for your Hamilton Tiger Cats. Luke Tasker and RJ Broadhead have covered it all, and now we would like to hear from you. Email us anytime at gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.